welcome to the very first episode of Yarn Y'all. My name is Rachel and I am your host. I decided that after watching many hours on YouTube of other creators sharing their projects and the things that they've made with yarn and different fibers, I wanted to join the conversation. And I said I wasn't going to say that, but here we are. So I just have really enjoyed watching other YouTubers share what they make. I appreciate that vicarious participation in the hobby. There's only so many hours that one can spend working with their hands, just in terms of the fact that this is a repetitive craft, and it's good to take a break. And so I can enjoy watching what other people are creating, and I wanted to do the same thing with my channel. So I'm going to kind of follow the same format as most people. There may be some deviations here and there, but right now the main I guess overarching theme of these films, or I guess episodes, is that as minimal editing as possible. I'm just starting out, so this is all being filmed very low tech, and I have heard from creators like TL Yarn Crafts that editing is the worst part of having a channel. So I've just decided I'm going to edit as little as possible. But let's go ahead and jump into the things that I've made. Since this is our very first episode, we're going to start with the things I've made recently. I have history with fibers and knitting crochet originally as a crocheter. I have since this year added in knitting to my hobby repertoire, but I'm for sure not like an expert knitter. However, just watching all these knitting channels has made me more and more interested, especially in knitting clothes, garments. I like the drape of a knitted material versus a crocheted material, and so I thought it would be worth learning so that I can make things to wear. The first thing I made was, well, I guess I should start with the first non-garment, because I've given away the first thing I've ever made. It was a toy fox, and I got that pattern from Etsy before I'd ever heard of Ravelry, and was getting all of my patterns from Etsy. Not to say that I had a lot, but they were either coming from books or Etsy. Since then, I've learned a lot more about the fiber community, and have since joined Ravelry and gone down the rabbit hole of all the things that I want to make. But anyway, first thing I've ever made was a fox. I gave that away. It was a one-year-old gift, and the cool thing about giving stuff to a one-year-old is they can't see all the mistakes that you can. So I think his mom told me he's enjoying it. So that's a benefit. The con to that is that I can't show people how far my work has progressed in the short amount of time I've been working on knitting, but I also don't have an embarrassing object hanging around either. So I don't know, 6 of one, half a dozen of another, as people might say. But I did take that same fox pattern and I made this little gnome. Just had some face shaping, and I thought he was pretty cute, and decided to leave him there instead of turning him into a fox. The hat is just sort of again modified from the fox pattern itself, and it's sewn on so it doesn't come off. But there's my cute little gnome. One of the other things that I've made was this goose, and this pattern did come from from Ravelry. It's not completely done. I still need to like sew in this tail here, but super cool. They show you how to do German short rows. There's a lot of like shaping here on the head, and my mom told me, she's like, if you can make that, you can make garments. Like, jump in and do it. So that gave me a lot of confidence. I like making toys just because of how quickly they work up. But that being said, I still do want to be able to wear some of the stuff I make too. So I will probably be showing more crocheted toys because they do work up faster than knitted toys. But this is my first large knitted toy, and I'm pretty proud of it. I do see mistakes and where places that I can improve, like the color palette isn't great, but not bad for an early attempt. And I will say this pattern's super great because It like has a whole like little beret and a jumper, a pair of pants that you can make for it. So I will probably make that. I will probably make this pattern again, but again, this is an early project and just learned a lot from it. So glad I have these two guys sitting around my house to remind me of what I can accomplish, as well as just the satisfaction of being like, I did that. So the next thing I want to show you guys is actually my first garment. When I first started knitting, and even when I was crocheting, making clothing just wasn't that interesting to me, because there is, I don't know, it just seems like a large object that you don't really always know that it's gonna turn out great. However, watching all the YouTubers and realizing like, hey, there's patterns for this, and grading and like all of that makes it more approachable. So I'm very excited. I have a lot of other plans, but I wanted to start with a pattern that I'd heard from a designer that I'd heard from other people, was pretty well known, and I thought it would be a pretty accessible first pattern. I do feel like it was. I just used some yard sale yarn that I got. It's Spanish Choice, Lion brand, and I think I paid $2 for this pack of yarn. And I just thought, okay, I'll use what's in my stash, which was this yarn, and I'll make this garment, and then I'll allow myself to like start looking at some of these hand-dyed yarns and things like that. I will say hand-dyed yarn for sweaters quantity is still sort of beyond what's accessible to me. At this stage in life, I've got a little baby, I'm a stay-at-home mom, like I'm just not going to be spending $200 to make a sweater. So, especially because I live in Texas and it's just not feasible to spend that money on something that I may only get the opportunity to wear twice in a year. So this is made out of acrylic yarn. It did soften up after I washed it, just tossed it in the machine and washed it because I knew I didn't have to be fussy with it because it is acrylic. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and put it on and you can see. Okay, so this is it. It is all put together. I will say there's a lot of errors here. Some of them are, I don't want to say intentional, but they're lazy choices. So you can see here my color change in the sleeve. So I actually did all of the body and the hem before I did the sleeves. That's what the pattern calls to do. Oh, I should have said, I was building to that and never finished the thought. This pattern is by Joji Locatelli. It is called the Dark Cloud pattern. My version is actually kind of cropped. I don't know that you can see right now. Well, I know you can't see right now. You'll be able to see in a minute, but my version is cropped, but I was just using the yarn that I had and making it work, and I just figured I'd go through the colors, do the sleeves, and however much of a sweater I got out of that, like that was what I was gonna get. So I can do color changes without showing the color change, but I had had enough pulling back when I did the first sleeve and I got to the blue and I was like, oh, you can see the color change. This is terrible, but I was over it. I hate pulling back knitting. As a crocheter, if you're a crocheter, you know, you just kind of pull the string until you get to the point where you want to be starting again. Knitting is not like that, and I have yet to find a very good way to pull back my knitting, and so I just kind of unknitting back one at a time. So all that being said is that I knew that I had messed it up on this side, and I was like, I'm lazy, I'm just going with it, and so I made the other side match. But the rest of the sleeves don't have that color change that is as obvious. I would say it's definitely not bad for a beginner knitter. Like, I've made the 2 toys that I showed you, plus the box I gave away, this, and like a chunky blanket. And those are the only knitted projects I've really made. So I feel pretty good about this. I am much happier with it than I thought. It was in a very ugly duckling phase. I started this after my daughter was born in, well, she was born in October. I started in November and I finished it in January, so it's been finished for about a month now. I've worn it a few times, but as I've mentioned, we live in Texas. It is barely sweater weather anymore. That being said, you guys see the finished object. But oh yeah, it's got a split hem that comes all the way up, and it is very cropped. But anyway, that being said, this is the thing. Here it is in all of its glory. Let me take this off and we can move into the stuff that I am working on, and then talk about some of the other stuff that I want to do. So yeah, 1 minute. Okay, we're back. I'm a lot more comfy. It is actually like shorts weather already, even though it's February. But that's what you get when you live in Texas. So the next project that I want to share is actually a blanket. And I've made several blankets in the past. As a crocheter, it's pretty standard to like, that's where most people start. I am no exception to that rule. However, my true passion is really making dolls and toys. However, I have a friend who really loves flowers and mandalias and asked me to make her a blanket, and when I agreed, she had indicated this is what she wanted, and this was before I had discovered Ravelry. So as far as I am aware, there's not really many mandalia patterns out there. And so after some searching around, I found a subscription kit, and it's through Annie's. I think it's just called Annie's Crafts or Annie's Knitting, Crochet, something like that. Annie's. If you just look it up, I'm sure you'll find it on Google. But it is a 10-month subscription, and I'm just gonna round here and say that it is $30 per month. They send you the yarn and the pattern in bite-sized pieces. I do think having finished this pattern, paying $300 to make your own blanket seems like a really good business plan for them. But like I said, I could not find another pattern out there that was similar to this, and so worth it in that sense. But I would have expected a much higher standard for the pattern instructions. It comes with videos, but even so, if you only watch the video and you don't have the written pattern, you're gonna miss some stuff. And if you only read the written pattern and don't watch the videos, you're gonna miss some stuff. So I don't know, I think for the price that you pay, it is a little bit subpar for what you get, but it's got the uniqueness aspect of it. And I will say that even as somebody who has a lot of crochet experience, I did learn a lot of fun patterns, a lot of fun textures. And if you're new to crocheting and you're not sure like how much yarn you're gonna need, like they send you exactly everything that you need to complete the project in terms of the consumable material. You do need to have your crochet hook. If you're gonna use stitch markers, tapestry needles, like you do need those, but they do send you the yarn and the instructions. So the first part of the instructions, you can see like you start in the middle and you work your way out. And I want to say like the first month you do like maybe out to this pink ring, and then from the pink you kind of go into the next month and it gets bigger and bigger. So I now have received all 10 months of this subscription. I am a little bit behind on the execution of the project, so this is one of my edges of the blanket, and then this is an edge that is actually a little further along in the make process. You can see this strip of flowers is the new part, and I will say there are a ton of ends to weave in, and I'm trying to make sure I have a good attitude about weaving in ends because it has to be done. And since it has to be done, I might as well not dread the whole process. So every once in a while I'm going in and weaving in ends, but let's see if I can scooch my chair back and show you this thing. Okay. This is it. And that's probably as good as we're gonna get in terms of getting this whole thing in the shot because it is quite large. That's one of the benefits of this blanket, is that it is done in bite-sized pieces, so you're not likely to give up or be overwhelmed by it because it's month by month. I am a little bit behind because I ran out of yarn. And you might be asking, like, why did you run out of yarn? They send you the yarn with your pattern. These are not the pattern colors. This is actually my own take on the pattern. I went to Hobby Lobby with my friend that I'm making this for, and she and I picked out colors that we liked, and we're following the pattern and making our own version of the blanket. So I actually have another version of this blanket in the pattern colors. I do so much more love this one. This one is just gorgeous, but it comes with its own problems when you go rogue with a pattern. So for example, I had to size up needles, not needles, hooks, and so I have this weird bulge thing that I'm hoping just the weight of the blanket itself kind of evens out a little bit, but my tension is not right because I used a different crochet hook than the one that they called for, and when you up in the pattern, I did not up my own crochet hook. So anyway, minor problem, but I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash, and because it is acrylic, this will get washed before it gets gifted to my friend, because it's also covered in cat fur. But yeah, this is the Frosted Blooms. It is a beautiful blanket despite some of the elements of tedium. There is just so much variety in what you're creating that if you're like me and you're ADHD, you're not going to get bored of this one. So that's one of my current projects. We are mid-February now, and my goal is to get this finished before the end of the month. I think I can do that because I'm on kit 9 out of 10 kits, and I just think it's a very doable goal. So we'll check back in when this is done, and I'll probably just have to include like still photos because I don't know that I'll be able to get the whole thing in frame. So that's this one. Oh, and just in case you were curious, this is actually how the kit comes in this beautiful packaging. I'm not gonna flip it over because it's got my address on it, but it comes with several balls of yarn in here, your instructions, and you're all ready to go. So that's what this is. The other whip that I've got going is actually a Cascada sweater by Rosario. It's not a sweater, it's a t-shirt. This is a free pattern on Ravelry, and I am using Arcane Fibers hand-dyed sock yarn for this pattern, and I am making this for my mom. She is also a fiber enthusiast, and I just think that for those of us who make, we don't often get handmade gifts, and so I wanted to make her something special that she maybe wouldn't splurge and buy for herself, using but colors that would really speak to her. So these are her favorite colors, these blues and purples, and this is my swatch. I just did like a swatch in the round, but you may notice that it's kind of white woven through there. I don't know if you can actually see that on here, but the white is a linen yarn that I'm also holding with this sock base, and I'll show you. So this is the yarn all wound up. It's beautiful, unlike my hands, but this is it. It's called Morph Me. It's inspired by like a butterfly wing. And then this is the linen yarn cone that I'm holding double with. So the cool thing is I'm not a natural fiber expert. I have primarily worked with acrylic and cotton. I'll be right back. Baby's getting grumpy. Okay, we're gonna see how this goes. I might chat for a little bit and then we'll have to wrap it up. But like I was saying, I primarily work with like cotton or acrylic yarn. A lot of my yarn has been given to me. As I mentioned, my mom is a fiber enthusiast as well. She knits, and so some of the stuff I have from her is secondhand or found at Goodwill or that kind of thing. And that being said, I'm not hugely familiar with working with wool or natural fibers besides cotton. And I have watched a lot of YouTube hours, as I mentioned, and a lot of people say that superwash grows, and obviously that would be a bad thing for a garment if it just kind of like expanded to be too big. I'm hoping that by holding it with linen, it will allow some of the benefits of the wool and the breathability of the wool to be combined with the breathability of the linen and the structure of the linen to kind of keep that garment having structure without like, I don't know, being as like firm or rigid as just plain linen, and being soft and beautiful with the sock base. So this is my plan. I'm hoping it works. It's funny because the idea came to me a while back in the winter of 2023 when I was watching all of these videos, and when I decided to actually finally execute and got all the supplies, like it was sitting in my home for quite some time before I started putting the sweater onto my needles, or before I cast on, I should say. And during that time, like after I'd already like been in progress with this project, one of the the knitters that I follow, aka Knits by Nora, she had said that she thinks the mohair held with another fiber is going to be maybe replaced, like that trend will be replaced with basically marling or holding another type of material held double with something else. And so I don't think I'm explaining this well, but anyway, I just thought it was funny that I already had cast on my needles this yarn and sort of combination of yarns, and then she predicted that this is going to be the new thing. So we'll see. Hopefully it works out. I'm definitely excited to share that with you guys, because when I was looking to see how this material might behave and get information on like how this might turn into a garment and that kind of thing, how the fabric would work up, I really couldn't find a lot of information, and so I'm super excited to be able to show you guys what I come up with. So once I get done with this little bit, whether that's today or I don't know, I might have to film tomorrow, I'll show you guys what that Cascada t-shirt looks like, because it is on my needles right now. We're making progress. I showed you the swatch, so way to build anticipation, right? So anyway, I hopefully will be back with you guys soon. Okay, so we're back. Pearl has had a snack and she is now playing with her toys. So we'll see if we can get through this without further ado. We were talking about the Cascada. I am super excited. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, but I just can't wait to be able to give something to my mom that I made. And this is what we've got so far. It's turning into a very beautiful fabric. We have some eyelets around the yoke, and I was actually just about to switch to smaller needles here. I've actually got my like interchangeables connected, so got a wide, really long cable. But this is where we're at. We're just grooving along. I'm about to, I think I've got probably about 20 rounds of work. Then I'll bind off the sleeves, and then we'll do the body. And the cool thing about the body is that it is a lace panel on one side, and I just think it's going to be really neat. I'm excited for her to have this because, as I mentioned earlier, the colors are really beautiful. The material is going to be really lightweight, easy care. I already mentioned that she is a knitter, so I know she would care for this material properly, but I am glad that it is a superwash because it will lower the barrier to wearability. And even though it is wool, well, it's got some wool in it, I think the linen will help a lot. And because it's a t-shirt, I also think she'll be able to wear it. She also lives in Texas, so it was definitely took some consideration to find the right yarn, the right pattern combo, without also, again, spending an arm and a leg to make her something special. So very excited about this, and we will be sharing our progress as we go. I don't know how often I'll be posting, but you guys will see as this comes together. The swatch I showed had been washed and blocked, but I did end up going up a needle size from the swatch because I didn't meet gauge, and so we'll see how it goes, but I'm pretty happy with the fabric that I'm getting. I'm doing a combination of sizes from the pattern because a lot of the project notes that I saw from other people's projects said that the neck was very big, and my mom's not a very large person. So we're doing a combination of sizes there, so hopefully that works out well. You'll see it as we get it done. The only other thing I wanted to share with you guys is I am not going to be acquiring a ton of yarn in this channel. I'm just not there. I'm a stuff person, but my husband is definitely more minimalist, and because I share this home with him, I need to be respectful of that. We don't live in a big mansion, and so I need to be wise about what I bring into the house, and there's only so much time in a day between caring for family and my own body to also spend knitting or crocheting. So many of the projects that you'll see on this channel will be things rated from my yarn stash, and of course one has to buy yarn to have a yarn stash or acquire yarn in some way or another. But I am working to be fairly disciplined about paring stuff down and not buying a whole lot more. The nice thing though is that even though this is old yarn, in my creative sense, you have never seen this yarn before. It is not part of your stash. So hopefully we'll all have a lot of fun as we make things on this channel and I'm able to share. Just some other garment related things. My next episode, I already have plans to talk about what I want this whole series to kind of be connected by. There will be garments, but as I mentioned earlier, I am a toy maker. I love the dolls and the creativity that can go into a doll. And so we'll be talking a lot more about that in my next episode. I'll be showing you some of my previous finished projects with my crochet hobby and more of what we'll talk about in that direction. But in terms of garments, some upcoming plans I have, because I said, I'm working through stash, I thought I'd show you one of the yarns that I impulsively bought before I ever even was a garment maker. The nice thing about knitting versus crochet, and I like them both, so don't make me pick, but knitting takes up way less yarn. So, this one little hank will actually go much further in terms of a fabric made when I knit it versus crocheting it. And so I've actually made a hood out of this out of crochet. I didn't like the way that it worked. You can actually see I've rewound some of the yarn that I had incorporated in that project, and I will now be working on turning this into a garment that is knitted that I hopefully will really like. I like the way that the yarn looks when it is knit into something. This is just me tinkering with knitting in a circle, doing ribbing, following no pattern whatsoever, and I like it. I don't know how wearable this is going to be. I don't wear things this bright all the time, or I guess maybe this rainbowy, but I'm thinking that I'm going to make the Jessie made cozy classic light. I have her pattern for that, and I think if I make a short sleeve version of it, 2 hanks of fingering weight yarn will be enough. And I just think it's very beautiful, classic, wearable silhouette, and so I'm excited to work on that coming up. This is, again, stuff I already had around the house. The other thing I've been thinking about and being very excited to cast on, but discipline. One thing, well, actually 3 things at a time, but no more than 3. That's just a personal rule for me. If you are a monogamous project doer, then good for you. I need something that's a little bit more portable and a little bit more variety in my life, but I'm also don't want to have 18 whips. Before my daughter arrived, I did actually finish up a lot of lingering, hibernating whips, and I feel really good at having accomplished that, but that was misery revisiting stuff that I was over already, and so I am being very good about keeping my whips to a minimal, but a girl can dream. So with that drew me in mind, let me show you the yarn that I did buy recently to make a sweater hoodie for my husband. Let me grab it. So this pattern is a pattern I found on Ravelry. It is going to be, I'm going to be following the pattern for the Coziest Life Ever hoodie, and I got the pattern for the women's and men's. The price difference wasn't that much between getting one or getting both, and I figured even though I maybe don't love the silhouette for the women's, I can still use those measurements, and I might change my mind and decide that I do like the silhouette, but better to purchase it now than regret not having it later. I don't know. My purchasing philosophy is all over the place, but I do think one area I am consistent with my purchasing and money spending philosophy is don't buy it if you can't afford it. And so, you know, whether that's spending a lot of money or a little money, if you can afford it, then go for it and enjoy it. And if you can't, then, you know, be patient. So anyway, that was a whole tangent. I may get that way on this channel, and I'm sorry, but here's the yarn that I'm going to be turning into a hoodie for my husband. You can kind of see it is a kettle dyed yarn. It is Hawthorne by Knit Picks, and it is their fingering weight. I want to say it does not have the color name on here. North Star kettle dyed yarn. It's beautiful. I did buy a sweater's quantity of this recently, and I think besides that, I really just want to be spending time working through the things I already own, which is very tempting to buy more when I'm in the yarn aisle, getting enough yarn to finish the bloom blanket, frosted bloom, but discipline, that is what being an adult is all about, is saying no when it's important so you can say yes to the things that you really want to do. And this is something I said yes to. So anyway, on that note, I know this episode got a little rambly. We're a little bumpy on takeoff, but I hope you stick with me. I plan to get better at this whole podcasting thing, and I hope you are willing to stick with me for the ride, and I look forward to showing you all the wonderful things that we're going to work on this year. So bye guys.